Would you please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic
for which it stands, one nation,
under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Is there anyone in the audience who would like to address the committee on an item that is not on tonight's agenda? No. Okay, thank you. Chairperson's remarks. I'm just going to move right along to the public hearing. I do have a few guidelines I'd like to remind everyone of. If you would like to speak, you should put your name on the sheet that is on the table up here by the microphone. If anybody came in and did not know that, Miss Alicia Greco was showing you where that sign-in sheet is right now. And for those of you who are not necessarily used to speaking into microphones on a regular basis, when you do come up and speak, make sure you're in at the right proximity so that your voice can be heard. There is a time limit of 3 minutes. The vice chair and I have this system. 3 minutes. At 1 minute, she's going to hold up the yellow card, and when your time's up, you get the semi-red one. If you have a prepared document with you, we would like that you to hand a copy of it to Sandy Susie over here. We would like also to ask you to avoid repeating what other people said, but encourage you to agree with somebody who may have spoken before you about a topic that you also wanted to speak on. This is a public hearing. This is for the public to talk to the school committee. We are listening. We are just listening tonight. Based on what we hear tonight, there is going to be a public discussion next Wednesday night, and that is certainly open to anybody who's here, but that will be when the school committee will discuss all of the input that we received tonight. I also thank you all for coming. It's nice to see a full house. I wish we had more of those. Mr. Farmer, did you want to speak?
Thank you. I'd just like to make a few introductory remarks so that we all start from more or less the same place in terms of our understanding the situation that the school committee is in. As the chairperson has indicated, you are discussing this evening, not discussing, but sharing your views on a tentative budget. As the chair has mentioned, we will be back next week to discuss what has been said this evening, and on the 11th of March, the school committee will meet to agree the final budget. So let's be clear about the process. In terms of what's been going on, I think we should recognize that the school committee has been using available funds in a way which is prudent and effective. The school committee has held down costs in a variety of ways over the past 2 or 3 years, particularly health insurance, transport, and special education. I will be referring to some of the pages in the handout that you have, and if you look at the penultimate page, which is actually marked page 42, you'll see there that if you look at the third column across special education tuition to other districts, that is reasonably flat. If you look at transportation, that is reasonably flat. If you look at fringe benefits, which is the fourth column from the right, you'll see a decrease there. And particularly if you look at instruction, you'll see, I'm going to pause for a moment because I can see that people are getting... it's actually got page 42 on it, but it's the penultimate next to the last page in the packet that you have. I'm talking about this little flyer, not the actual budget document. I think that's a bit too much to be speaking to as a whole this evening. I was encouraging you to have a look at this this profile, which we received very recently from our auditors, and I was drawing attention to special education, the third column from the left, which is pretty flat. You'll see our school choice and charter expenditures going down. That represents considerable success in moving from a situation where we had about 150 students choicing out to now we have 75 choicing in more than choice out. That represents nearly $1 million change in expenditure. If you look at transportation, which is the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5th column across, it's fairly flat. If you look at fringe benefits, you'll see that they have declined. While if you look at instruction, you'll see that expenditures in instruction as a proportion of the budget has increased. So I'm sharing that simply to provide you with some information about things which have been going on. I'd like to ask Brian Forget to talk about the last page in this handout, which shows how our expenditures have increased in relation to general levels of inflation over a period of time. Brian?
Just very briefly, we spend a lot of time in the budget talking about actual expenditures, and there have been several questions from members of the community about how are our expenditures over the course of the 10-year period shown here, about what we would assume inflation would have increased normally. So the categories that are here, we didn't recreate a new document. This is actually the summary that was put out by Christopher. It's part of the budget. But we took the same 5 major budget driver categories of regular transport, special education, special ed transport, health and dental, and utilities, and took a look at, if you look at the chart, the top line FY07, you can see in regular transport we spent $1.3 million. We can, for each of these categories, if you take it down to FY16T, that's the tentative budget, what we're proposing to be spending next year. On the bottom, where it says FY07 actuals inflation adjusted to 2014, I'm doing this right off of the link by the Bureau of Labor Statistics, the government data source where you can plug any number you want up to $10 million and it will inflate it to any year you'd like to. The most recent year they have is 2014. It's by calendar year, not fiscal. So we can't inflate it to 2015, and we certainly can't inflate it to next year, which would be obviously calendar year 2016 that we're talking about our expenditures for the tentative budget. So just as an indicator to take a look at where is our spending up against, if we had taken those expenditures, let's call it 10 years ago, and inflated them, what would we be expecting to spend? So if you take regular transportation, if we adjusted those FY07 figures for inflation to the 2014 figure, the proposed 2016 spending is only $9,000 over inflation. Special education and special ed transport, you can see would actually be close to $500,000 below what the inflated number would be, $167,000 below for special ed transport, what it would be if we inflated for, adjusted for inflation. Health and dental, I don't believe there's any town or community or corporation that isn't feeling the pinch of healthcare. Our benefits are competitive to school districts in the area as far as our 70-30 split, but that one obviously doesn't matter who's creating that chart, that will always be an inflation buster. The final category is utilities, and it's probably the most accurate comparison because of the fact that regular transport, we talk about sometimes we remove bus runs, so there's adjustments. Special education, special ed transport, obviously, that is, a moving wheel constantly. Health and dental, we've been able to make some savings. There were years we went backwards, changed with plan design. Utilities, other than the variance from year to year, and I hope this winter is almost over, but other than the variance from year to years, we always heat buildings, we always provide water, we always turn the lights on. So that's probably the best indicator of an inflationary calculation there to look at what it would be. So if you took the $1.088 million we spent in FY07, which again is the 2006-2007 school year, and inflated it to 2014 numbers, for next year's projection, even with the huge increase, we're still $100,000 below what inflation would have assumed we'd be spending over that 10-year period. So this is not something to make decisions on. This is, as Christopher was talking about, it's just another indicator of how we have been fortunate to be able to control costs and spending. And unfortunately this year, aside from the snow, it's been the perfect storm of all of these savings kind of melting away as we've gone through the process.
Thank you, Brian. And just in case you don't know, if you look at special education and health and dental here, across the state as a whole, school districts are funded at $2.2 billion less than school districts spend on those two particular items. That is how far the state funding system is out of kilter with what we actually need to spend. Let's turn very briefly to this coming year. We have no information from the state. We know we will not have any information from the state until March 4th, which is 7 days before we need to establish the final budget for transmission to the towns. If you take the Boston Globe, you'll know on the front page those who watch the financial state of the state are reporting that the state is going to be $1.5 billion short next year, having already used one-time funds largely to balance this year. So the governor's budget presumably is going to start with the fact that the state is $1.5 billion short. I mentioned that to explain why we're not very optimistic about the support we're going to get from the state this year. Brian's already mentioned that some of the areas that we have been able to control through contracts over the past few years, a number of contracts have had to be renegotiated simultaneously. They all go out to bid, and we are about $2 million short in terms of the increases in contracts like utilities, transport, for example. So that's the situation in which the school committee is working. School committee usually addresses the budget through three questions. What would it need to provide what you might regard as an adequate budget? Be able to provide the kind of things that we think we should provide, like free universal kindergarten, no fees for athletics. We would need an additional $5 million more than our current budget to fund an adequate service. We also look to see what it would cost to develop what's called a level service budget, which means simply rolling forward current programs and services with some adjustments for changes in student numbers. That would cost $2.4 million more than we're spending now. So the committee's in a hard place. It needs to say, well, we're in this difficult financial situation. We could present an adequate budget that's $5 million more than we're spending now, but looking realistically at the financial situation, the committee gave guidance to the administration to develop a budget that would increase assessments to the towns on average by 4%, bearing in mind that towns' capacity to raise revenue is limited by Prop 2.5 plus any additional revenue funds that they get because there are new properties or some of the taxes bring in more than they would otherwise be the case. So the committee gave guidance to try to develop a budget with about a 4% increase to the towns. How have we designed the budget? Well, there are some organizations that would say if we need to save 3%, let's cut everybody by 3%. That isn't the way to actually manage a budget. We need to make sure, as you will see from the budget document, that we have a plan design. People will say, well, your student numbers are going down, and therefore you need less money. The reality is that we're organized around classes, groups of children for teaching purposes, not just raw numbers. You can't take the total number of students and divide them by a class size and come to a number of teachers. So if you had a chance to look at the documentation, We're looking to develop a budget that holds true to the district's values, core values, and the development plan to maintain the range and quality of services. And I can't pretend that by cutting over $1 million out of the budget, we can exactly do that, but it ought to be a goal. We have to provide special education services, they're mandated. And I don't say that reluctantly, because I do believe that in many ways communities are, you can tell a lot about a community in terms of how it responds to the most needy people in the community. It looks to match personnel numbers with those required to provide a quality learning opportunity for students. It looks to maintain a strategic capacity to keep on improving and developing. And lastly, it looks to provide access to the World Wide Web. We've, largely through donations, acquired a lot of additional technology recently, and my understanding is that people get frustrated when teachers and students go online and find that they've got a beach ball going round and round and round, rather than getting them quickly onto the web. So that's the background. That's the design of the budget. I, as I'm sure the committee, look forward to your comments. This is a draft. I always believe that only a fool will never change their mind. So I would certainly encourage people to say what you need to say. Thank you.
Just before we begin, one more reminder: if anyone would like to speak, we ask that you sign your name on the table, the paper that's on the table right by the microphone. I have taken the sheet with the names that have signed so far. So again, if anybody would like to speak, that's where you need to sign in. I have 2 letters that I would like to read into the record. These were sent to, one was sent to me, one was sent to the school committee. Dear school committee members, my name is Margaret Flaherty, and I have worked at Triton for 10 years. Though my father earned his golden apple in Triton's math department, I made the perhaps masochistic choice to teach high school English. As such, as one of your foot soldiers on the front line, I would like to share a few thoughts with you about the impact the section-based cuts will make in the work I do with our community's senior students. I grant that a section-based approach appears logical on paper. I want to offer you one teacher's perspective of what it would look like in practice. Parents of seniors come to curriculum night in the fall filled with questions about college essays. While the Common Core does not call for teachers to give specific attention to this, I have found students require a great deal of support during this process. I dedicate a week every fall to reviewing the requirements of the personal essay style, which is the style of the college essay, and helping students deconstruct the essay prompts that they have collected from their colleges. This takes 2 class periods. That is the easy part. The hard part, the truly time-consuming part, is helping students brainstorm topics, helping students match topics to a prompt, and supporting their writing of first drafts. This is time-consuming because this is work that must be done individually, one student at my desk at a time. That takes the remaining 3 days to talk them down from the immense anxiety they're experiencing so they can move forward into the requisite industry. 3 days to get them to a starting point. And that is with small classes. With small classes, I can give the concentrated attention to their needs. Outside of class time, I also give feedback on drafts, usually multiple drafts per student. A good essay feedback session takes 20 minutes. I make note of all of the time requirements because it is my time senior students will not have next year. I will have 100% of the student load, but 80% of the time. It would take more than a week to accomplish the same one-on-one college essay counseling strategy that has proven to be so effective in these past years. However, I cannot sacrifice what the core requires. I will have to move on. There will be too many of them and not enough time. I am first and foremost tasked with preparing them with the skills they will need in college. Getting into college will be up to them. My other concern has to do with graduation rates. If I recall correctly from my years serving on school council, our graduation rate is in the low 90s and above the state average, which is in the 80s. As we entered fourth quarter last year, one of my students required that I use 4 full prep periods worth of time in meetings with guidance counselors, conversations with academic support staff, and consultation with the assistant principal. That isn't to mention the time spent in maintaining communication with home. My student eventually wore his navy gown, and I have the snapshot behind my desk to prove it. But it required intense attention from me as his teacher. And that, in fact, I would say that I have 3 to 5 students every year that require comparable lengths. I will remind you here that I am one of 5 senior teachers who put in similar work on our near-to-graduation students' behalves. A reduction to 80% means that we will have less time to help students in need. A reduction to 80% means that students so close to their day on the dais will fall through the cracks. Not because I want them to, but because work requires time. Many of the small classes in my department are seminar classes. I have developed 5 of them myself and delight in the students' interest in their selected seminar topics. For example, I teach the creative writing classes and am pleased that every year when students are passionate enough to push themselves to meet the required rigor. They are invested in their work, invested through peer editing in their peers' work. For these students who are instinctive, natural writers, this writing community will no longer exist to nurture their abilities. Creativity as a practice, as a skill, will suffer. I will also be sad to see the Women in Literature seminar disbanded. Though the focus of the course is on women-focused novels written by women, I pull in gender studies. For example, after reading the chapter of I Know Why the Caged Bird Sings, wherein Maya Angelou survives a sexual assault, I teach women in literature students about the topic and its relationship to gender roles. This year, my sexual assault unit led to 5 students coming forward about their own status as sexual assault survivors. In turn, our school has put programming in place to address this invisible yet ubiquitous issue. That course gave those students a place to understand their experiences, gave students a place to prevent those experiences for others, and will give the entire school an opportunity to be part of the change our world needs. But that course will be gone. All 3 of these losses, seniors not making it to graduation, seniors struggling in college applications, seniors losing a place of safety and growth, weigh heavy on my heart. My heart is still heavier to know that I am only one teacher of the 20 teachers on our 61-person teaching staff who will be affected by the section-based cuts. I can only guess at what the effects will be in their classrooms. As I'm sure you know, teachers do not come into teaching for the money. Any teacher worth his or her salt comes into teaching because of a love for and investment in students. My favorite time as a teacher is when I am working with kids in my classroom. I like knowing their stories. I like coming to be part of their stories. It breaks my heart to know that I will be unable to do my best for them. The best is what they deserve. Thank you for your consideration. Regards, Margaret M. Flaherty. The next is from Laura Cook. Dear Ms. Choate, I wish I could attend tonight's public meeting regarding the FY16 Triton School budget. Thank you for taking the time to read my thoughts and perspective. We recently moved from out of state to the beautiful town of Newbury. Prior to the move, we spent a significant amount of time determining which town would be best suited for our family. While home prices were a factor, the most significant search criteria for us was the school system. If you go to most real estate websites, there will be a direct link to the school rankings and a profile that includes information such as classroom size, test scores, diversity, etc. While nearby districts such as Masconomet and Hamilton-Wenham school districts rank higher than Triton, what appealed to us was the small class sizes at NES, the number of kids choosing into the district, as well as what seemed to be overall commitment and long-term investment to improving the school district. In order to continue to attract homebuyers who are willing to pay more for a sense of community and a top school system, a commitment and investment in our schools must remain strong. This can be achieved by attracting and maintaining excellent teachers, improving services for special needs and reading specialists, and keeping classroom sizes small. To this last point of class size, given that Massachusetts ranks something like 48th in the country for investment in student gifted and talented programs, a small class size is critical if the teacher is to actually implement differentiation to meet the wide range of needs within their classroom. Reducing the number of reading interventionists will also make it harder for teachers to customize education for students who don't need extra help. I strongly encourage you to find a way to keep classroom sizes small and provide the necessary resources for the wide range of needs that our students have. I realize it's a tough challenge, but there is a direct correlation between property values and the caliber of public schools. Thank you for your time. Laura Cook, Newbury. First on the list tonight to speak is Joe Perry, yes, from Raleigh. Joe.
Thank you very much. Joe Perry, Vice Chairman of the Board of Selectmen, Town of Raleigh. Dear Chairperson Choate, the Raleigh Board of Selectmen would like to express its concerns over the proposed 4.21% increase in the Triton tentative operating budget for the fiscal year 2016, dated February 11th, 2015. However, since the estimated assessment for Raleigh was not included in the tentative budget, it is difficult to comment on it for this public hearing. The town of Raleigh is facing an extremely difficult budget year for fiscal year 16, given the exorbitant cost of this winter's snow and ice removal, anticipated large increases in veteran services payments, and the proposed increase in Triton's budget. Additionally, given the current fiscal climate, we are not optimistic that the town's state allocations will increase. Based on how we have estimated Raleigh's portion of Triton's proposed 4.21% increase, the town cannot afford it. We request that the Triton budget increase for fiscal year 16 be as close to 2.5% as possible. The student enrollment numbers included in the proposed budget show a consistent downward trend. Therefore, a more moderate budget increase should be achievable. The town estimates receiving new tax revenue of $431,246 in fiscal year 16 and anticipates being able to fund an increased Triton assessment equal to 50% of this new tax revenue, or $215,623. We request that the Triton budget be prepared within these parameters. Finally, because Triton has not provided an estimate of the town's fiscal year 16, and I will defer to Mr. Farmer's earlier statement that the governor has not provided the figures that are necessary for the budget. Finally, because Triton, as of the date of this public hearing, we request that this public hearing be continued so that we can comment once this crucial data has been provided. And if I could offer one further comment about the snow removal, we budgeted $100,000 for snow removal in Raleigh, and we have paid out over $300,000, and we have not received all of the bills for the snow that has already fallen, and we expect to see more next week and beyond that. The veterans' benefits that we've paid out, we have had an increase of almost 100% in the requests for veterans' benefits to the town. And we haven't even talked about making some construction requirements to Pine Grove School, and we haven't talked about the fire public safety building and other issues. So we have a lot on our plate this year, and we urgently request you to ask that you meet our request of 2.5%. Thank you.
Thank you, Joe. Just as a reminder, or this might be new information for some people in the audience, the school committee meets with the 3 towns that represent that included in the district on a regular basis in the district communications committee meetings, which we had one earlier this month where we take input from all of the towns so that we can use that in our deliberations. So tonight's meeting is for the public to give us input. So we will not continue this hearing per se, but next week we will have a meeting where we will be deliberating, and that is open to everyone to come. So while we appreciate the request, we are going to continue. We'll do the public hearing tonight and continue with our regularly scheduled meeting on March 4th next week. Okay, thank you. Lisa Herzl?
Good evening. I'm Lisa Herzl, and I'm Program Coordinator for the History Department at the high school. I would like to explain how the anticipated cuts would impact the educational experience my department provides for Triton students. In order for a student to graduate from Triton High School, they must take and pass 3 history classes. Although students are not required to take a 4th year of history, many of them choose to take an elective, such as psychology, economics, political science, Model United Nations, genocide studies, or one of the 3 AP courses we offer, U.S. history, U.S. government, or European history. Not only do these courses help make our students more well-rounded and prepare them to be citizens and community members, but they give them a college transcript boost, and in the case of the AP classes, a chance to earn college credit. It is currently anticipated that there will be 4 section cuts to our department. These section cuts would eliminate many, if not all, of these electives from being offered to our students in order to staff the required history classes students need to graduate. By eliminating these electives, we are making ourselves less competitive with other schools that offer these programs in the area and limiting our students' abilities to build their transcripts and prepare for colleges, careers, and communities. We have been told these cuts are being made due to enrollment numbers. However, last year we added 2 new elective courses, one of which enrollment became so large and we had to split it into 2 classes to meet the demand. Some of our courses do have small numbers, which enables our teachers to provide quality opportunities outside of the classroom. This year, due to having a smaller Model United Nations class, I was able to take them to a conference with other area schools over the weekend. These cuts do not just impact our elective courses. They will force us to enlarge many of our required classes. With these larger class numbers, the amount of individualized attention and feedback students receive will be limited. I currently teach 3 sections of freshman world history with numbers in the high teens and low 20s. Research has shown that a student's experience freshman year is one of the greatest indicators of whether or not that student will remain in school and graduate. By increasing the size of these classes, we are sacrificing our students' educational experience, graduation rates, and success outside of school. Teachers in my department are concerned about the impact these cuts are having on student learning, achievement, and development. We would like to see areas that do not directly impact students' academic achievements to be cut back first before we take away these opportunities from our students. Thank you.
Thank you, Lisa. Karen Summit?
Good evening. My name is Karen Summit, and I'm the treasurer collector for the town of Rowley. I'm also a taxpayer in the town of Rowley, and I'm also a parent of a middle schooler and a high schooler. Over the past several years, I've noticed an alarming trend in the Triton budget, the rising cost of health insurance. Triton is not unique in this trend. It is affecting communities and school districts across the Commonwealth. I recently heard that health care is one of the only fields where advances in technology have not led to a decrease in cost. To address these skyrocketing costs, municipal health care reform was passed in 2011, which allowed communities and school districts to revise their municipal health care policies. According to a June 2014 Boston Business Journal article, to date, 91 cities and towns across the state have completed the reform process or joined the GIC following the reform law, resulting in nearly $95 million in first-year cost savings. Additionally, more than 166 communities and school districts used the reform law to negotiate health plan insurance changes, yielding more than $152 million in first-year savings. I'd like to ask you to reflect on how Triton has taken advantage of municipal health care reform to reduce health insurance costs. While I believe that there were some changes made with regard to tiering a few years ago, I do not see any evidence that Triton has taken full advantage of this opportunity. What I see in the 2016 budget still shows the same employer-employee ratios as before the reforms. In an environment of declining enrollment with an increased operating budget, has the school committee investigated the opportunity to decrease health care costs in order to maintain or improve services in other areas of the budget that directly affect the students? The increase in this year's proposed budget for health care is a whopping $475,776. It appears that the budget merely passes through 70% of this increase to the towns. If you are not willing to make changes that decrease the cost through higher deductibles, copays, or coinsurance, another choice would be to change the employee-employer split. Triton needs to mitigate the effects of increasing insurance costs on the budget. By spreading the the impact of the increases among participants as well. Costs could be more equitably allocated between all stakeholders. Nobody likes increases in their health insurance cost. Am I suggesting anything that is not consistent with trends in employee benefits? There's a slide in the package from the Kaiser Family Foundation presented during the January 30th GIC Municipal Forum, which bullets current trends. If you take a look in the package, you'll see typical individual upfront deductibles are going up. 32% of employers offer only high deductible plans. Inpatient hospitalization, 62% of employers have coinsurance with an average of 19%, and it goes on. There's other evidence that supports these trends that are going on. In a historic Supreme Judicial Court decision on February 3rd, 2015, the court agreed that a municipality can change health insurance contribution rates for retirees without going through collective bargaining. The trends are there. Changes must be made. If you ask, what does this mean in terms of dollars and cents for Triton's budget? According to my estimates, for every 5% shift in the split for retiree health insurance, Triton could save approximately 80%. If the split were to go to 50-50, the savings would be over $300,000. With current employees, the savings for every 5% are approximately $275,000. I'd like to say in
Aaron,
closing, yeah.
closing.
Oh, may I just say one comment? I leave you with one final question. How can the school committee expect the taxpayers of Rowley to support projects like the stadium or Pine Grove renovation, which will directly impact the quality of education for our students, if we are given these kind of budgetary increases year after year? Thank you.
Thank you. Sarah Scruton?
Sarah Scruton, I'm a teacher at the high school. I'm actually going to yield my time to Sue Densmore.
Okay, thank you. Lauren, I'm sorry, I can't read the last name.
My name is Lauren Rivard, also a teacher at the high school, and I yield my time to Sue Densmore as well.
Okay, thank you. Sue Densmore?
Good evening. I'm Sue Densmore. I have several roles in our district: music teacher, program coordinator for the arts, and president of the Teachers Association. I also grew up in Rowley and went to Pine Grove and Triton. I'm standing tonight to make a few comments to the committee about the proposed cuts to the Triton budget, but if I may be so bold, as a former community member and a graduate of this district, I would like also to point a couple of thoughts in the direction of our current citizens, and especially our community leaders. Communities come together to provide services for everyone, which means we all take care of one another's children by providing good schools. Our kids get an education, and our good schools make our communities more desirable places to live. The Triton District has made great strides these last several years. There's a growing positive vibe around here, and we've worked to live within our means. Teachers have taken 0 raises, foregone steps, and voted in favor of a furlough day in an effort to help the budget stay balanced a few years ago. More recently, our business manager has saved the district tens of thousands of dollars by negotiating great rates on insurance, natural gas, electricity, and transportation. In fact, as you saw on the chart later, when corrected for inflation, in some of these categories, we're actually spending less now than we did 10 years ago. Even now, in light of all this, faced with the fact that there are increases that must be incurred, it seems actually expected that instead of asking for what the district needs, the superintendent and the committee are expected to bring a budget request that contains cuts. What we need is for the community, and particularly its leaders, to maybe advocate a bit for the schools. Not to mention what the rest of the town needs, but maybe it hasn't occurred to people that we should be advocating for investment in our schools. Triton has become a school district that draws people in via choice. We've worked and continue to work tirelessly to make this district great. Good schools increase property values and enhance the reputation of a town. Why would we not want to invest in that? Which brings me to the proposed cuts. There are 2 kinds of people who work in schools. There are the people that meet the children every day and provide direct instruction, and there are the people who are there to make sure that first group has the resources and support to do its job. The TRTA is frustrated that we are cutting so many teachers, and we do not appear to be looking to cut administration, raise fees, offer early retirement incentives, and look into health insurance incentives. Class sizes at the elementary level might remain at an acceptable level, but I'm not 100% certain of that would be true across the board. But I'm not sure the committee has a full grasp on how the cuts at the high school would affect the programming. I have heard the superintendent talk about how we'll merge small sections and combine small classes, which sounds logical on paper, but shows at least a little bit of misunderstanding of why we have smaller classes in the first place and the effect that section cuts would have in the reality. We have a large and diverse number of elective classes in all departments. Most of these only offer one section. Since there are only so many ways a student's schedule can be configured in a high school, there are only so many of these courses the students can fit into their schedules. So, for instance, of the 10 or 12 students who requested Sound Tech Level 1 last year, only 4 were actually able to get it into their schedule. That's one of the part-time classes that got affected. This sort of thing happens all over the place, and I have students who came into the year having requested full schedules, like all 7 classes completely booked, and wound up with study halls, multiple study halls, some of them. We don't have small classes because the kids aren't signing up or because we don't have enough kids to take them. We have small classes because we can't offer more sections of them. Well, so why not cut the electives out of the schedule? Because those diverse course offerings, among them the large number of advanced placement courses Triton offers, and several unique topics like forensics or natural science, are some of the reasons students are choosing to come here, and the balance of our choice funding has begun to tip in our favor. Having these programs has earned wider recognition for Triton, making it a desirable school system, and by extension, making its communities desirable places to live. Second, several of our small classes are designed for special populations. Students who maybe need some extra help or an alternative curriculum in math or English, for instance, or for those gifted students who wish to take advantage of those challenging advanced placement classes. Cutting small classes, then, will inevitably cut programming. Cut one section of Sound Tech, you've cut the entire Sound Tech program. Cut one section of AP Physics, you've cut all of the AP Physics program. And I think it's important that we understand what we're talking about. The Department of English has decided to move back to a generalized English 12 model to absorb potential cuts, thereby ending the electives designed to provide topics of interest to students through which to continue the development of their English language skills. Finally, class size matters at all levels. We seem to have taught people over the years that 25 students in a class is sort of the good target, the magic number, and 1 or 2 kids more is not really a big deal. A friend of mine did his doctoral thesis some years ago on the factors within a school's control that can positively affect student achievement. He found that what he called teacher contact time, where a teacher is able to interact with a student, give feedback, etc., has a large impact on whether the student learns and how quickly. Imagine the difference in interaction when a teacher has 18 kids versus 25. Imagine being an English or a history teacher. The demands of PARCC and the Common Core have increased the writing demands in both these subjects as well as science. So, you've assigned an essay, and your 100 students have now handed them in and would like to get your feedback. If you take 10 or 15 minutes to correct and comment on each of those 100 papers, you have to find 15 or 20 extra hours to complete them. But the next day, those classes are going to come back, and you're going to have something planned to teach them. And that parent who sent you an email is expecting a response, and you have a faculty meeting and 2 504 meetings this week. That's just one example. These kinds of demands exist at all levels and in all disciplines. It isn't that teachers don't want more students. It's that we want to do right by them, and we want to be set up for success. So, we would urge the school committee to advocate for a budget that reflects what the schools really need to keep doing what we're doing and to keep moving in the direction we've been headed for these last few years. It's been working. But if we must cut, please look to cut items other than the people who are meeting the students every day and providing direct instruction in all the diverse and wonderful courses we've developed. Thank you.
Thank you, Sue. Margot Ryan.
I'm the reading specialist at Newbury Elementary School, and I just have a few things I'd like to say. I'm standing here this evening to share with you...
Excuse me, Margot, can you maybe get a little closer to the microphone?
I'm not used to
Thank you.
this. I'm standing here this evening to share with you the value, importance, and the power of having an interventionist partnering with the teachers, special educators, and reading specialists at Newbury Elementary School. For the past 3 years, Newbury Elementary School has had an interventionist servicing our most challenged early readers. Reviewing the data, one can see the impact of what just a 0.5 interventionist has done for the students at Newbury Elementary. I'd like to share with you some of these results. In our current third grade classroom, when they started with a group of 79 students in 2012. In first grade, 35 of these students received services from our interventionists for at least 8 weeks. Of those 35 students benefiting from our interventionist services, 14 students exited the intervention by the end of first grade. 4 were referred for special ed services, and 17 children were flagged to begin with intervention services at the first day of their second grade year. In the same cohort in second grade consisted of 76 students. 20 students received services from the interventionist for at least 8 weeks. Of those 20 students benefiting from our interventionist expertise, 15 students exited intervention by the end of second grade. 1 student was referred for special education services, and 4 were flagged to be seen immediately starting their third grade year. Now in third grade, this cohort of students' requirements include only 4 students receiving reading support from the literacy specialist or the Wilson trained teacher, and 5 students receiving reading support through special education services. This cohort entered first grade with a DIBELS composite score of 53%, which means that we had 53% of our students at or above the grade level benchmark, and exited first grade with an 83% composite score of its population at or above benchmark. They entered second grade with a 70% composite score of its students reading at or above benchmark according to DIBELS, oral reading fluency, with an 82% accuracy. So 82% of our population was reading at or above their grade level expectation. This cohort now in third grade, this is the best news, okay? Admittedly so, with small class sizes. This cohort, now in third grade, is there with 94% of the general population not receiving intense intervention. That's 94%. We have, by our mid-year benchmark for oral reading fluency, is at the 80% of our students are reading fluently at their grade level expectation, with 91% of our students reading accurately. That is with a 97% benchmark for accuracy. So that means they're reading like 100 plus words with maybe just 1 mistake. So these results were similar for our second grade students. We started with 59 students entering their first grade year. Of those 59 students, 22 students received services provided by the interventionist for at least 6 weeks. 2 of those students entered the first grade on an IEP, with the intervention providing additional support to support the student's special educational services. 9 students exited intervention by the end of first grade. 3 were referred for special education services. 8 students were flagged to continue services at the startup of second grade. So at the beginning of the year, this cohort's DIBELS composite score was 73% at or above benchmark, and ended the school year with a composite score of 86% above, at or above the benchmark. This shows a growth of 13%. This year is their second year at NES. We now have 56 students. 8 students are receiving services from the interventionist for at least 6 weeks. Of those 8 students benefiting from the interventionist, 3 students were released in January after the January DIBELS benchmark, but continue to be progress monitoring. We don't want anybody falling through the
Margot,
holes.
can you wrap it up?
Okay. At mid-year, 8.93% of the students are receiving services from the interventionist, as well as 8.89%. I'm here. Our interventionist, our .5 interventionist, has been an instrumental player and decision maker in the education of these 3 cohorts, of which you've heard about 2 of them. Our data demonstrates the success of having an interventionist in place, if even just for a half a day. She has provided a safety net for those children whose curriculum is in need of tweaking.
Margot.
With her small group, okay? One more sentence, please. Okay.
Thank you.
I thank you for your time.
Elena Sales?
Hello, I'm Elena Sales, PTA president at Newberry Elementary. I definitely don't feel as prepared as everyone else here tonight, but I'm going to go for it. We had some significant cuts come into Newberry Elementary School, and if I had enough time, I could argue every point.
Can you get a little
Yep,
closer?
I'm sorry.
Thank you.
But I'm going to specifically speak to the reading interventionist, which Margot just spoke of.
I'm just going to say something. If you have a different topic that you would like to speak on, you can agree with what she says and then perhaps cover something else. Just a suggestion. Okay.
Do you want me to just sit down?
No, you can speak. I'm just saying that you...
Well, I agree with her. I just had some other alternatives
fine.
that
That's
perhaps the committee could look at to make cuts somewhere else. So with that said, I strongly disagree with cutting the reading interventionalists. With our students facing PARCC and the standards being placed on our students only getting higher, what will our struggling readers do? How will they possibly be able to cope and succeed? Front-loading our effort to ensure strong readers at the lower grades is in everyone's best interest. We will end up paying for this mistake down the road, as well as turning our backs on our most struggling readers. After much research, I've tried to come up with alternative solutions and other ideas so NES can maintain our reading interventionists. The late bus has been reduced. Instead of 70K, they're making it 50K. Can it be reduced even further? What does that look like? Can different schools have different solutions? Can our school, Newberry Elementary, opt out of the late bus and only have parent pickups? Can we do a survey for the parents and see if they'd be willing to do that? The new math program that we intend to implement is for $250,000, and it's most likely going to be spread out over 3 years. Can we roll it out differently? Can it be longer? Do we have the money to fund that complete program? And then what about our administration? Going with no raises next year, as well as possible reduction in the number of days those at central office work, along the lines of instead of working 205 days, possibly working 202 days. Can this be further looked at? And again, cutting the reading interventionists at Pine Grove and NES, this only makes sense that it would just cost us more money later, because if we're not, helping the children in the 1st and 2nd grade be able to read, they're just going to have more kids have an IEP or 504 later, which is just going to cost us more money. So I feel like it just doesn't make sense. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Shauna McGee?
Hello, my name is Shauna McGee. I'm speaking today as a parent of a 2nd grader and a kindergartner at Newberry Elementary, and another one, 3rd one coming up the pike, and also as the literacy coach at Pine Grove School. My comments are going to be similar to Margot's and, I'm sorry, Elena's, but differ slightly in their focus. I'm going to be specifically speaking on 2 main points: the loss of reading recovery at Pine Grove School and how the loss of the interventionist position will affect coaching at both Newberry Elementary and Pine Grove School. So, just as some background information, as a literacy coach at Pine Grove, my work includes planning and facilitating professional development sessions at the district and school level, facilitating professional learning community or PLC meetings with grade level teams, co-planning and co-teaching lessons with teachers in their classrooms, demonstrating lessons for teachers in their classrooms. I also collect, organize, and disseminate assessment data to teachers and sit with them and help them analyze that data and make plans for instruction. And finally, I organize community events. So I just felt it was important to go on record as a result of all of this experience that I've had in the district to tell you what I know about what will happen if the interventionist position is cut. In specific regards to reading recovery, I know that all of the research supports the absolute necessity of early intervention for struggling readers if we are to begin to close gaps for those readers. I know that validated, peer-reviewed, and independent research has shown reading recovery to be an effective early literacy intervention. I know that at Pine Grove School, reading recovery has been a successful, powerful early literacy intervention for over 12 years. And I know that at Pine Grove School, the majority of first graders who enter reading recovery in the lowest performing 10% of their class exit the program in just 12 to 20 weeks, reading at the average of their peers. I know that very few successful reading recovery students at Pine Grove have subsequently been placed in special education because for reading services. I know that parents of reading recovery students report that first graders who previously saw themselves as bad at reading increase in confidence and self-esteem because of reading recovery, and I know that is half the battle. In regards to the interventionist positions in general, I know that research shows that what makes the most difference in student learning is teacher expertise, and that coaching is what helps create opportunities for teacher collaboration and reflection, and that our district and building administrators know this and have worked hard to support coaching in the district. And I know that at Pine Grove School, we have worked extremely hard to build a collaborative environment that is supportive of teachers and aims to help build and share teacher expertise. And that if the interventionist position is cut at Pine Grove, it will be very difficult to maintain the level of coaching and teacher support that we are working so hard to establish. Finally, I know that teachers are being asked to do more every year with less, and that it just can't continue to happen. Thank you for your consideration.
Thank you, Shauna. Renee Toth?
Thanks for giving me the opportunity to speak. I prepared some remarks that, of course, are the center of them is the same as the prior couple speakers as my main meat. So I'm going to wing it and fly, see what I can say that was not just said. But I think it's important for you all to know and for members of the audience to know that these are not isolated opinions. And so while it might not be as entertaining or, helpful, I feel it's very helpful for you to hear the same message over and over. This is not only the people being directly affected by the cuts to reading interventionist positions. If we don't help that struggling reader early on, what's going to happen? In the Common Core, or rather the state frameworks, more and more reading is required in all subjects. Math is now no longer just numbers, it's words. So when you have that struggling first grade student who's not being supported, they're now going to feel like a failure. They are going to probably have a big blow to their self-esteem. You know what that's going to trigger? Now they need more support from the school adjustment counselor. Then they might become a behavior problem. Guess what? Now the assistant principal is spending more time, all because that student is not being supported as much as she or he needs to be supported. I take it a step further. This budget's also calling for a cut of a middle school interventionist position because the person is retiring and there's not a plan to replace her. This interventionist sees students who in some ways have slipped through the cracks over the years, and now at middle school, they're saying, wait, we need to help this child. so that they can go on to high school, be a successful student, graduate on time. Who's going to be there now? We're looking at increased class sizes. Who's going to help those struggling students? We need to consider all of the impact. Why are we cutting core education? We are a school system. We need to advocate for our children's education. Along with that, a small little sidebar. I really don't like to see that we're looking at cutting after-school busing. Many of these students are motivated to attend simply by what they get to do after school. Not everyone has the luxury of a parent who can come pick them up, drop them off. Why would we cut that? The budget for transportation for these students is going down at a time that, per the proposed budget, our athletics busing goes up. Not everyone is an athlete. Some of the athletes are using the after-school busing. Great. But let's make it so all students, whether they're receiving academic support after school, they're doing a club or an activity or a sport, can have full use of the after-school transportation. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Renee. Alicia Greco.
My name is Alicia Greco. I am the parent of a high schooler, as well as the PTA president at the middle and high school. I'm a Newbury resident. I hear what everybody's saying. I'm echoing it. My only concern, my only thing that I really want to present to you, to the board, is that your role is to advocate for these kids. It's not what the towns need. It's not even what the teachers need to a certain extent, because it's for the kids. And I think that the school has done very well. The budget has done very well. Brian's been doing a great job at shaving it all over the years, but it's a perfect storm, and it's a perfect storm not only for Triton, but it's a perfect storm for the 3 towns as well. And what Sue Densmore said about being a community and getting up and advocating for the kids, advocating for your veterans, advocating for the police departments, advocating for everyone. We need more money. It's not a question of cutting it. It's a question of adding more money. And I would like to see the conversations at the towns start gearing towards how we're going to support this place that we call home. Thank you.
Thank you, Alicia. Is there anyone else who would like to speak before we? Yes. That's okay. Anyone who would like to speak, sign in on the paper right there.
Good evening. My name is Kathy Norton. I'm program coordinator for the Math, Computer Science, and Business Department. I'm also a parent in this town and a taxpayer. So I've been in this district. I come to the school committee tonight. I've been in this district for 21 years. My children are in their mid-20s, and I have a 3rd grader. So I'm on past 2. But tonight I speak mostly for the high school. We're an incredible community. And this is a very different high school than when I first moved here and when my children first started at the high school. And that's thanks to our administration, our principals, but the program coordinators who work with the incredible teachers in this high school. I've been a teacher at Triton for 10 years, and we are definitely not the same high school when I first started. We take care of each other in this high school, but that's because we love our students. The kids rely on us, and when we are stretched to pieces with large classrooms, it's very difficult to give to give ourselves to our students the same way. There are things, you know, you see us just as teachers, but there's a lot more that we do for our kids besides just give direct instruction. In the math department and business, we're losing 5 sections. Business is the #1 major in this country, and we're cutting 2 sections. All you hear these days is STEM, STEM, STEM. And we're cutting 3 math sections, plus 2 engineering sections. We live in an age where everything is science, technology, engineering, math, business, and the arts. So I'm asking you, remember, we matter to each other. We, the teachers of this high school, are a family, and we really take care of each other. But that's because we love our students. Thank you.
Thank you, Kathy. Is there anyone else who would like to speak? I see a hand. A brave man wearing shorts.
I know, I'm sorry, I just came from the gym, so it's a good thing we're all far away from each other right now. Now I forget what I was going to say.
Sign in. I'm sorry.
So we've heard a lot about tonight from, you know, my colleagues, my friends, about some of the proposed cuts and...
Excuse me, can you give us your name?
Oh, I'm sorry. Mike Estuccio. I'm a 4th grade teacher at Newbury Elementary School. I'm a graduate of the district, and I live in Salisbury, so there's the bio. We've heard quite a bit about cuts to different positions and a little bit of talk about class size. And, you know, I do understand that the class sizes, you know, projected do look like something from a standpoint of research that could be acceptable. I just think it's also important to consider, beyond the fact of the increased rigor in education with the advent of the PARCC and the Common Core, as a classroom teacher, you are there in the moments when students, all students, not just students who have difficulties with social, emotional interactions, you're there in the moment to help them, you know, through those moments and teach them how to react and how to interact. And I think it's important to remember that with education, sure, you know, you're raising citizens who are going to know their math facts, hopefully, and who are going to be able to solve, you know, complicated problems and understand literature. But at the same time, one of the goals of education is to raise citizens who are ready and active, prepared to be active in their society and their community, and that really starts at a young age in the elementary school classroom, learning how to interact with one another, learning, you know, the wheelings and dealings of social interaction. And I think when you have, you know, smaller class sizes, that tends to work better because you have the time to address the academic needs and all that comes with that, and at the same time you have the time to help the students learn how to interact and just how to be. So I think it's important just to remember that with smaller class sizes and you know, just having the moments in the classroom with the students, that's an important thing to keep in mind as well. Clearly didn't prepare anything, but that's it.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who would like to speak? Yes? Oh.
Hello, my name is Anastasia Peralt. I'm a senior in this district, and I have been in this district since kindergarten. I would just like to speak to the benefit that I've felt as a student here from having class time in smaller classrooms with teachers and ability to come to extracurricular activities and get extra help after school, thanks to after-school transportation and things like that. I can pretty honestly say that as a student here, I would not be as successful as I was in high school. I would not be accepted into the colleges I've been accepted to if I did not get the opportunity to take AP classes where I was prepared for college courses, taking tests quickly, which helped on my SATs, getting extra help in math classes, like for Algebra 2 with Miss Norton, and in stats every single day, and earlier today, in fact, as well, and in Miss Flaherty's creative writing classes, where I got to get a lot of feedback on my writing, which helps me, you know, write my college essays and apply to business schools and things like that. My business classes, which I worked with Mr. Fisher, helped me understand all of the budgets, things that I was just reading earlier, to understand what's happening here. You know, it's really important to me that the school continues to give that time to students. I have a little brother coming up, you know, he's a freshman. I have friends who are sophomores and in middle school, and I have a little cousin who's in elementary school. I have a next door neighbor who in SES struggled with reading and is getting the help she needs because of the current resources given to her. I tutored her for a while and I couldn't give her the help she needs, but she got it at SES. And you know, so I just wanted to say from a student's perspective that this is really important, you know. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes? Yes, you.
I am Maddie Nathan.
Excuse me, could you please sign in?
Maddie Nathan. I'm the parent of a 4th grader who's lucky to be in Mr. Stuccio's class. He's an outstanding teacher. I chose this community because I thought Newberry Elementary was an outstanding school. And I had an opportunity in my work. I'm a neuropsychologist for children and go around all over the North Shore since '91. I've seen a lot of schools. And I can say that it was no contest that Newberry Elementary was such a wonderful group of teachers. They work together. They clearly work for the students. And my experience as a parent has been that these teachers have been there for my child and for the other children in the way that Mr. Stuccio mentioned. And I just want to say, please don't cut our teachers. Please don't cut our reading teacher. Please don't cut the math program that needs to be revised desperately. Please appreciate that whatever can be done to spare our teachers and to spare the guts of our education is critical. I came in as a neophyte, as a parent, and I said, well, why is everybody focusing on smart boards? And there was a lot of talk about them, and they all came in. And I still think, and perhaps I'm in the minority, that it's more important that we have really excellent teachers than we have really excellent curricula. I'm concerned about some of the changes in curricula, and I know that the teachers are as well. I've never felt that the teachers are anything less than outstanding at Newberry Elementary, and I know in the other schools as well, but my child's in Newberry Elementary, so I'm a fan. And it would be devastating to our children to lose any of these teachers and to lose any help in reading. And it would be a devastation to me to think that we're not going to move on in math. We really need to move on in math desperately. And other schools have done it, and they've done it well, and we need to do it too. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Anyone else? All right, thank you. I want to kind of make a couple of statements. Alicia Greco mentioned advocating, and she mentioned it in many ways. And I'm saying not only to the people that are here tonight, but the people who may see this meeting broadcast at some time. Advocating is very critical. You have all spoken to the school committee. We have heard what you said. But what we also need you to do is to speak to your elected politicians. We are elected also, but you need to speak to the politicians, the elected, the selectmen, the people that make the decisions in each of your towns. You need to contact them and tell them what you feel about our budget as part of their responsibility. You also need to take that a step further and contact your state representatives also, your state senators, your state legislators also, because there are very, very many areas, and you've heard us talk about them. You've heard Mr. Farmer and Mr. Forget talk about those areas that are not funded. We're required to do them, but they are not funded. So I ask all of you here and all of you out there, please contact the boards of selectmen in your towns, tell them what your wishes are, and then please contact your elected state officials to tell them what your wishes are. Well, I think we mentioned that next week we will have a public deliberation about all of the input that we've received. 2 weeks from tonight, we will vote a final budget. The final budget will go to each of the 3 towns. It needs to be approved by 2 out of the 3 towns in order to become our working budget. And this will happen at the town meetings. We have timelines we have to work with, specific dates we have to work with. we have to get a budget to the towns by a certain date so that they can get it on their agenda for the town meetings. So if you have any specific questions on the process, any more information than that you might like, please get in touch with any of us. We'd be happy to talk to you. If you have anything that you didn't get a chance to say tonight or that you think of later within the next few days, please call, email, get in touch with any of us. And again, tell your elected officials what you think and what you want. It's very, very important. And show up at town meeting. Yes, we will be saying that again. It's very, very important. These numbers will go on the ballot at town meeting, and you've got to go and vote for your budget at town meeting. So this is wonderful. This is the beginning. You need to follow through with it, follow up on it, and stay with us until we get through the town meetings. And thank you very much. Could we have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
All those in favor? Thank you very much again.